Good morning. I thought some of you might want to take a look and see what the office looks like. So I'll just start from where you come in at the door. One of the first things that people tend to notice is Wile E. Coyote, super genius, here by the door. And you can see he's got his stick of dynamite that he's dropped, which is probably not a good sign. So we're just going to move right on from that. So here's what the rest of the office looks like, my desk, and there's some of the computers, and there is Schroeder, or I'm sorry, there's, that Schroeder in the background who may be fading in since he's entirely black, and then of course here is Nicholas, who will turn around immediately because he's pretty shy about that stuff. So one of the things you'll see is the icon corner, which you'll find in just about every Eastern Orthodox, that's Greek Orthodox, Russian Orthodox kind of home or office. And that raises kind of an interesting point that I generally don't have a problem between religion and science. I think that science has a very defined role and religion has a component as well. The thing is that I don't believe in Stephen Gould's non-overlapping magisterium. For those of you who are into theology, I think that science does what it does, and if religion fits into it, that's great. And I think that for the most part it can, as long as people realize that the scientific method is our best way of understanding the world. And that's not to denigrate religion, because it's a very important part of my life. But if there's a conflict, it probably means I've got the religion wrong rather than getting the science wrong. But that's, again, just my opinion. So you'll see on the walls here's some photography that I've done. So we'll start with my desk and my work area here, which there's Nicholas again. And I have a fairly large screen on the desktop so I can keep multiple windows opening. Try to keep a fairly neat desk with just a few notepads, and you can see there's my phone, and there's actually, we're not going to talk about that, and my coffee cup. So as we move around here, there's Schroeder again, who thinks I'm talking to him, because obviously why would I be talking to anybody else? Moving around, there's their breakfast is still sitting out. Cats are interesting. One thing that people may want to think about, they like to have their food and their water in separate places. So that's why we kind of move the food bowl around sometimes. Computers, a lot of them in here. This is actually a rack of 10 dual processor 24 core Xeons, 3 gigahertz for those of you who are interested. Each one of these boxes also contains 2 NVIDIA Tesla Kepler type GPUs. So since there's 10 of these boxes with an 11th one as a node controller, there are actually 256 Xeon processor cores and 27,000 GPU cores. So it's a fairly capable system, supercomputer class, for being able to do the numerical modeling. And we move over here. There's lots of the blinking lights. This is actually the satellite data receivers, and this is where most of the data comes in through. There's a 15-foot satellite dish out back. There's also a couple of smaller 3-foot KU band dishes, and naturally all of that data has to be processed and stored in the right places. There, all the satellite data, all of the information coming in from seismographs around the world. It's a lot of data, and it takes a lot of storage. Got about 100 terabytes of disk storage here, so it's a little bit more than you may find on your average PC, but quite extensive. And again, that's part of the reason why I've reluctantly had to start asking for donations and contributions. The government funding for this isn't as extensive as it used to be, and you can imagine just the electric bills in here are pretty crazy. So just moving around, there's one of the consoles for monitoring it, and a little bit of heritage type stuff. It turns out I do know how to throw an axe. Discovered that when we made a recent trip to Iceland. Some more artwork and photography here. Working on the Hadrian's Wall Challenge on the treadmill, which is one way to try to keep fit. Just one last bit of workstation, and Schroeder will say hello about this. This is an Awips 2 workstation. It's essentially the same software that the National Weather Service uses in their forecast offices. On the left, you've got some of the text bulletins and data coming, in this case, from Charleston and from the National Meteorological Center. And on the right is the current satellite view from the GOES East. So we're looking at the little system that might be spinning up here. If we can move our pointer around, there's this blob that this blob here may well become a tropical storm at some point, or not. There's some dry air and disruptive influences over here that may cause it to not spin up. And then the visual band, and on the visual bands you can see sometimes some pretty sun glints, and it's an ever-changing world, and it's really kind of neat to be able to watch it. This updates every 10 minutes, this particular data feed, but some of the high-resolution areas on GOES, we now get a satellite image every minute for an evolving hurricane or storms, which is pretty amazing the way the technology's changed over the last decade or so. We can also pull up things like there's the local Charleston radar, pretty much real-time. The national multi-radar, multi-sensor composite, that's also just about real-time. We can pull up any of the computer models. So for instance, you hear about, let's see if we can pull up GOES, the GFS model. We can just come up here and get GFS in. Let's look at the 850 millibar heights and winds, and it'll take a minute or so to talk to the other computers on the other side of the room and start pulling up those maps. And you can see down there in the lower left corner, that is what by this point will probably be Hurricane Elida, which is a pretty mature storm by this point according to this particular model. So that's what things look like, and hope you enjoyed the quick tour, and talk to you later.